What's up, guys? It's me, Pez Flips, and today I have a really cool video for you. A video where I talk about this guy. Now, this guy is called the Sentient, and I was sent out this guy for free, full disclosure, just with the agreement that I'd make at least one video talking about it. And you know, I'm always honored to be given things, honestly, for free. But also before other people get a chance to get it, you know, it just makes me feel special, you know. But anyways, let's actually talk about the thing that I was given. This guy is really interesting, and I have a lot of things to say about it. I did make an agreement with the fella that I would cover a couple of things, not all of the things, in like this review guide that he gave me, but certain details that they thought were interesting, and you know, I kind of took note of those and made a list of my own. So let me go through my notes on my phone, and then we can talk about them. So first of all, like I said, it's called the Sentient. Let me put this guy down. It's called the Sentient, and it is $45. And this material, it's a plastic, it's a UV hardened blade as well as handles. Now, I have never flipped resin handles before, but I know that some of them are flexible. Now, these are not like really flexible, and that's like something that they wanted to make note of, is that uh-oh, the leaf is stuck in there. Okay, it's going to be stuck in there unless I can get this out. No! Okay, so these aren't actually flexible handles, and that's something to keep in mind, because durability-wise, this is not going to be something that you're going to want to flip on concrete or something like that. It's probably not going to hold up, but part of the reason as to why the design is like this, a little bit on the thicker side, is because of that handle material to help accommodate for the potential of it cracking. Now, the blade is somewhat flexible, but the handles, yeah, they're pretty rigid. Let's see what else. It has T8 hardware, which is neat. And like I said, it was not flexible. It's also heat sensitive. So if you have this in a location where it's going to absorb a lot of heat, a lot of sunlight, there are chances that this thing will warp. Its dimensions will change, and certain features about this knife would be compromised, specifically with the modularity of these weights. If you notice here, there are weights down here that you can take out or put in as you see fit to kind of mess around. There are some pins down here, and they do push around, but there aren't any other weights. So it's really with these or without these, and I'll have more to talk about that one in a bit. I want to make sure that my framing is all right. Yeah, if you break one of the handles or the blade, each part individually is $5 to repair, as well as shipping. So you just have to go to Seeth Designs Instagram at Seeth, SEETH _designs, or his website, which is also linked on his Instagram, which is seethdesigns.com. This guy made a different trainer earlier, of like a Egyptian style. I could be incorrect with the exact origins of it, but it was really interesting, and obviously offered something that, you know, you don't see a lot in the community. And one of the main arguments that this guy made for what kind of design he was going for was a trainer plastic balisong that wasn't necessarily made to be this super public-oriented flipper. And I think that's because of the blade. Now you can see it even has milling lines in the blade, which I think is really fun. If you look on it on its ridge, that's really thick. Obviously, the whole design of this guy is pretty exceptionally thick, and I think what that does is it gives it a little bit of a chunkier feeling. The material of the handles as well makes this thing feel, I've compared it to some other people who have been able to flip it. It feels like you're flipping marshmallows or something like that in your hands. Like, it's a very odd sensation. But I think my main takeaways with this guy are specifically what niche it fits. Now, this guy is, to answer your question you're wondering, it's not the best flipper. Now, I don't think it's unflippable, and you can see I'm actually able to do quite a bit. It is a little bit on the longer side, and I sometimes have a preference for the shorter balisongs just because I have smaller hands, and I'm not a big fan of like when a knife like hits your forearm or something like that, because then it kind of like stops the momentum and stuff. But overall, I don't think it's that bad. Texture wise, I think the handles feel really good, but like being plastic and stuff, it's not really going to slip around too much because it's just so light that you don't have to worry about like grip strength. You don't really need a ton of it to really be able to do what you want to do with this guy. It does come with jimping, which actually is I'd say fair, good. Nothing like too insane. Lots of wind here, but yeah, I'd say the niche that this fills is being a quiet flipper. This thing is so quiet. Listen to this. Let's see the ice pick. Yeah, by the sound of that, being that there probably wasn't really anything you could hear, or like just like barely anything, this thing is, yeah, really quiet. Now, where are some places where that might be a benefit? My argument originally was in the car. I've always vouched for plastic balisongs being good car flippers because they, like if you do drop them, right, and it's in a car, you're going to be less subject to damaging the interior of your car because it is plastic. It is a softer material. As for durability concerns, I have flipped this in a car. I've actually dropped it on concrete before, and it hasn't really gotten too much damage. I think the only thing I have is like a little bit of a thing like right there at the edge, but it hasn't cracked on me or anything. It hasn't warped yet. Yeah. Being in a car and having it plastic means that, when you're in an enclosed space, the sound of a knife can be much louder. And when it's this quiet, it really diminishes that aspect of it. So you don't have to worry about it being this really obtrusive thing. And the material being soft, like it just kind of works. Another thing, because I was talking to my girlfriend about this actually, we were talking about the qualities that it had, and they said, well, what about in a social situation? What if you're just hanging out with some people and you guys are chatting, but you wanted to flip, right? Like that could be a place too, because of the sound being, not very invasive. You can get away with having a conversation and, being able to flip at the same time without being loud and being disruptive to the flow of the conversation, if you will. The modularity of this thing is a feature that is there. I don't know how much of a difference it makes, and I would say that because I don't think the weights do enough. This is a fine flipper, like I said. It flips okay, but ultimately the problem is that it doesn't have a lot of end weight. The blade feels fine. Arguably, I wish it was almost a little bit more towards the tip. But at the end of the day, it's really these guys. These pins here just don't do a lot. I mean, I haven't tried it without them because I think it would just be even worse. But it doesn't really hold a lot of that end weight, which means you do sometimes, like there, on rollovers, it just doesn't go. And you do have to be a little bit more committal with the moves that you do end up making. So sometimes, yeah, it just struggles to make it through certain tricks. But this was designed first and foremost as a collector's item, something to fiddle around with, something that's different, unique. Apparently, all these are going to have serialized numbers somewhere on the blade. Mine doesn't have one. I'm not fancy. But yeah, this isn't necessarily a performance flipper. I think it definitely could be if they had like a different sort of weight. I don't know if brass is heavier from whatever material this is, but having something as a backup option to be able to swap with these back weights, I think would give it a lot more flippability. I think obviously its length is a little bit of a different thing to get used to, but I don't think the handles are really like that obtrusively thick. So like the length is interesting, but I don't think obtrusive, and the handles are interesting but not really obtrusive to flipping. So yeah, that's really my main takeaway with this, guys, that it is fun. One additional note, I've had balisongs in the past that I have flipped that I think are really interesting, not because of what they are themselves, but rather how they interact with other balisongs that I do flip with. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I basically am trying to say that by flipping this thing, which does kind of float a little bit because it is lacking some of that weight. There's the breeze. Because it's lacking some of that weight, when I do end up moving to a more traditional balisong made out of metal, aluminum, I really, really do have this like kinesthetic awareness of that end weight with the other knife, of course. It's almost like this is training me to feel that weight in other knives. It's kind of the same thing I've said with like heavier knives. When I flip those, going to a not super light knife, but a lighter knife, feeling more light and therefore more agile. In this case, this gives you that awareness. Oh, wait, guys. It's got something on there. I think that's the serial code that they're talking about. Okay, sidetracked. But yeah, this thing allows you to have an awareness of that end weight. I think the adjustable weights, again, are fun, are cool, but I just don't know if they're really doing a whole ton. I'd say for $45, it's fine. Ultimately, this is made for collectors, right? So you already have some other knives. It's not really like the biggest of investments. I mean, obviously the plastic balisong market, it feels like for the most part it's targeted towards beginner flippers because of the cost of them. They're generally cheaper, and beginner flippers are going to be flipping cheaper things. So maybe there's some incongruencies with that because, I don't know, are you really going to be getting the collectors to do it? But at the same time, because it is plastic, because it is cheaper, the cost to invest in it, to add it to your collection, is minimal. $45, like I said. Now, ultimately, if I'm going to recommend a performance flipper that is plastic, I'm going to tell you to get the Frank P. But if you have a collection, yeah, I think this is fine. And honestly, the Frank P kind of comes and goes. I saw a post from LDY saying that they were going to be putting him to rest for a little bit. I mean, I guess he'll be revived in the future, but in that situation, there are like just a couple of main plastic flippers, and this one by no means is like the most performant, but I think it's important to mention the fact that the designer did not go out of his way to make the most performant flipper, but I think that because of the fact it is plastic, making revisions, making a version 2 is more feasible. It is easier to take the feedback from what people are saying and make a new design. Ultimately, I think this could be a really interesting thing where, it does change a lot and it becomes something that is really responsive to feedback. Ultimately, this all depends on, how the designer feels about it all. But yeah, I would say that it's certainly an interesting balisong, and I cannot believe I just forgot to mention one of the craziest things about this that I completely forgot about until right now, and that is that how many washers do you think this thing has? I want you to guess. Okay, write it in the comments if you will, and publish it before looking at the answer. The answer is 8. 8 washers. Now you might be asking, well, how the heck are there 8 washers in this thing? And it's quite simple. It's on 2 washers for every single point. So normally there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that is because this is plastic. If you're going to use stainless steel washers, which is a boogeyman in this community, and frankly, I don't even know the full depths of that, so I know some people are a lot more passionate about stainless steel washers, but people talk about with stainless steel washers the hardness of the material and how it can wear out other material. So what this maker did, what Seeth did, is he made it so that there were 2 washers in every single pivot area, which ultimately means that the washers are rubbing against themselves, which is really interesting. I don't know how easy or hard it is to tune something like this. Ultimately, with a plastic, it's like, you know, how am I going to evaluate the effectiveness of the tune? He even mentions it in his review doc that this is kind of a finicky system to tune. I think that's mostly due to the hardware, I guess, from how they explained it. But yeah, I've never seen something do a double-sided washer. You know, I remember when I first started flipping, I got a Tsunami clone from the One, and it was a floating washers system, and I remember that feeling complicated. And ultimately, now that I've gotten a little bit more comfortable with my own tuning, and I ended up just going to bushings and stuff, you know, it doesn't seem as much of a boogeyman, but additional sets of washers for every single contact area is really interesting, and I wonder what that would be like to navigate that in like a non-plastic balisong, if that would potentially remedy this issue of stainless steel. I mean, I'm just spitballing here. I don't really know, but yeah, I mean, it's an interesting situation. I'm going to stand up so I'm more in the light maybe. But yeah, I do think that this thing does offer something unique for what it's trying to be a collector's item, and I think it accomplishes that goal. Ultimately, I'm a more performant-oriented flipper, so it's not like my most favorite thing in the world, but I think it's still fun, and ultimately, because I got it for free, hey man, I'm never gonna get rid of this, because it's just cool to be sent stuff. I'm honored to be part of this community and have people reach out to me and, you know, ask for my opinions on stuff. I'm just a guy, again. Thank you guys for watching. That's going to basically be it for this guy. You know, I'll probably pick him up here and there, but there was no obligation for me to make anything more than just the one video. So I'll make some, like I'll post a clip with this guy, and I'll be picking it up here and there, but yeah, just one more thing. Let's try to do a clip before we go, but let's do it in the sunlight. That doesn't count. Okay, if I drop it, it's the end. Didn't drop it. Okay, next mess up, I'm done. Well, there you go, guys. It's been Pez Flips. Have an excellent day, evening, afternoon, what have you. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.